host of others. Now that we are settled, technical, let's have the national anthem.
Nigerians all and proud to serve our sovereign motherland.
I think technical, do we have the national prayer? All right, then, please bring that up. Otherwise, we will just make do with this. This is fine. Thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Governor, host Governor, Central Bank of Nigeria, permit me to commence proceedings by acknowledging the presence in our midst of the distinguished Honorable Minister of Finance, the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Honorable Oleodo. Please, let's put our hands together for the CME. They have been here earlier. So, Governor, like I said earlier, there are distinguished senators of the Federal Republic here seated with us, chairs of the Senate's Committee on Capital Market and Finance are also here, also Senator Sani Musa and Senator Sita Itonazo. Please, let's acknowledge their presence. Honorable Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Atiku Bagudu, you just made your way in. But this is, so Governor, I learned a long time ago, whenever Senator Bagudu is in a CBN function, it's always homecoming for him. It's his family. Honorable Minister, you are welcome back home. Distinguished stakeholders, members of the Monetary Policy Committee, Professor Sabo Murtala Sagaj, in no particular order, Professor Mustafa Akikumi, Deputy Governor Datijo, and Lamido Yuguda, member MPC, Deputy Governor Designate, to acknowledge your presence. There are a lot of bank MDs here. I would acknowledge you all, esteemed through the join of bank MDs, Dr. Oliva Alauba. Thank you very much. And the wide spectrum of the stakeholders that are here today. Indeed, this Monetary Policy Forum brings together a distinguished assembly of key actors whose input is very important. The expertise, the collaborations they bring to bear shapes Nigeria's macroeconomic landscape. My name is Mohammed Haruna. I'm most privileged to compare these proceedings, and together with my colleague Sotechi would ensure that we have a very memorable time here together. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, even those joining us virtually, macroeconomic stability, as we know, it's neither accidental nor linear. It is a disciplined journey, a careful choreography of foresight, restraint, courage, and consensus. It demands alignment between fiscal authorities and monetary custodians, synergy between policy intent and market response, and trust between institutions and the citizens that exist to serve. And that is why this forum matters. This forum matters because it has been convened in line with global best practices, where there is a new discovery that monetary policy is not a solitary craft, but a chorus of coordinated actors, a symphony in which each instrument, be it fiscal prudence, financial market depth, private sector vibrancy, or institutional integrity, must play in harmony. This year's theme, strengthening Nigeria's macroeconomic stability through effective monetary policy, the role of critical stakeholders, it invites us to reflect deeply. What does it take to stabilize not just numbers, but a nation's aspirations? What must we do differently? How do we harmonize reforms with realities? Ladies and gentlemen, today's session will inch us closer to the answers, to those questions that the team has posed. And so, I welcome you most warmly with extreme privilege to the 2026 Monetary Policy Forum, which is not just a gathering of experts, but custodians of Nigeria's economic future. The conversation will begin, but only appropriately, by having the Deputy Governor, Economic Policy Directorate in the Central Bank of Nigeria, Dr. Mohammed Abdullahi, formally welcome this esteemed assembly of experts and critical stakeholders. Deputy Governor Abdullahi, please.
Thank you, Mohammed. Our host, the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Olayemi Cardoso, the Honorable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edu, the Honorable Minister of Budget and National Planning, Alhaji Atiku Bagudu, the Chairman, Senate Committee on Banking, Senate Committee on Finance, Senator Sani Musa, the Chairman, Senate Committee on Banking, ably represented by and of himself, Senator Osita Izunaso, members of the Committees of Governors of the Central Bank of Nigeria, members of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Chairman, Nigeria Governors Forum, development partners, including representatives of the IMF and the World Bank, captains of industry and managing directors of CEOs of Nigerian banks, our distinguished lead speakers, directors, special advisors to the governor, and senior management of the Central Bank of Nigeria, the organized private sector, labor unions, and other stakeholders, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the 2026 Monetary Policy Forum of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Your presence reflects our shared commitment to building a stable, dynamic, and resilient economy, and we are particularly honored by the diversity of the stakeholders gathered here today, from government, the financial sector, industry, and the academia. This broad representation underscores the collective responsibility we all bear in steering Nigeria towards sustainable macroeconomic stability. Your continued participation affirms the value you place on constructive policy dialogue, informed engagement, and collaborative problem solving. On behalf of the CBN, I thank you sincerely for honoring our invitation and for your unwavering commitment to strengthening the nation's economic policy landscape. The Monetary Policy Forum has evolved into an indispensable platform for open dialogue between the central bank and critical stakeholders across the Nigerian economy. In an era where monetary policy outcomes depend increasingly on credibility, communication, and expectations, it is essential that we periodically ensure that policy directions are well understood and that stakeholders' perspectives are incorporated into the broader policy framework. This engagement enhances transparency, strengthens trust, and helps improve the alignment between policy intentions and real sector outcomes, thereby enriching our collective understanding of the dynamics that are shaping Nigeria's monetary and financial stability. Since the last Monetary Policy Forum, held in January of 2025, Nigeria's macroeconomic environment has improved markedly, reflecting the cumulative impact of wide-ranging structural and policy reforms. Most notably, inflation has decelerated significantly, while conditions in the foreign exchange market have also improved considerably. In addition, investor confidence has strengthened, including improvement in fiscal monetary coordination. Despite these encouraging developments, we recognize that the journey towards sustainable macroeconomic stability is an ongoing process rather than a destination, as macroeconomic stability cannot be achieved by the central bank alone. It requires consistent and disciplined actions across all sectors of the economy. It is therefore imperative that we sustain the current momentum of reforms, strengthen policy coordination, and deepen the dialogue between policymakers and stakeholders. To achieve this, the central bank thought it necessary to convene this 2026 Monetary Policy Forum with the theme, Strengthening Nigeria's Macroeconomic Stability through Effective Monetary Policy Coordination, the critical role of stakeholders. This theme underscores a fundamental principle, which is macroeconomic stability is a shared responsibility. While the central bank is responsible for monetary policy, its effectiveness depends on the response and behavior of a broad spectrum of economic actors. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the value of this forum lies not only in the perspectives shared by policymakers, but also in the feedback received by stakeholders across the Nigerian economy. We therefore encourage all participants to engage in robust and constructive dialogue in the course of our deliberation. We are particularly interested in understanding how adjustments to monetary policy impacts respective sectors. Beyond the macroeconomic statistics that we analyze at the central bank, it is important for us to hear directly from critical stakeholders such as yourself, who will discuss, hopefully, your experiences and how policy changes influence your investment decisions, credit conditions, production costs, pricing behavior, and expectations. As we begin today's deliberation, I would like to once again express the Central Bank of Nigeria's sincere appreciation to all stakeholders present here and online for your continued engagement and commitment to constructive policy dialogue. Your participation reflects a shared dedication to building a more stable, resilient, and prosperous Nigerian economy. Finally, it is important to emphasize that the discussions we hold here today should not end with this forum. Continuous engagement between the central bank and stakeholders is essential for improving policy effectiveness and ensuring that our decisions remain responsive to the realities of the Nigerian economy. We therefore encourage stakeholders to take advantage of the several channels available for engaging with the bank. In conclusion, let me once again express our deep appreciation for your presence and continued commitment to constructive policy engagement. We, as the Central Bank of Nigeria, remain committed to openness, engagement, and responsiveness as we pursue our mandate of price stability and a sound financial system. I wish you all productive deliberations and look forward to the valuable insights that will emerge from today's discussions. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Please let's appreciate Deputy Governor Economic Policy Directorate, Dr. Muhammad Abdullahi, one more time. They're setting the stage, if you like. So, Governor, permit me to inform this audience that in the last 2 years, the Central Bank of Nigeria has been very big in what you refer to as thought leadership. And perhaps no directorate exemplifies your vision for that trajectory more than the Economic Policy Directorate. So if the governor is the coach who conceives the victory of thought leadership, DG Muhammad Abdullah is the on-field captain that ensures that the strategy goes to play. And then you see a lot of this kind of intellectually stimulating sessions comes to play. Please let's acknowledge the governor who is the initiator, the DG who is the captain, and all the on-field players who ensure that the Central Bank of Nigeria is indeed a big player like it should be in the thought leadership space. Thank you very much once again, Dr. Mohammed Abdullahi. At this point, we will be taking Goodwill messages. I am going to be taking the liberty to flip the script a bit. So we will first be taking the Goodwill message of the Chair Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance, and Other Financial Institutions, Distinguished Senator Mikael Adetokunbo Abiru. Mr. Governor, Distinguished Senator Abiru is here represented by Distinguished Senator Osita Isunazo. He had informed us earlier. Senator Osita, you may wish to deliver the Goodwill message of the Chair Senate Committee on Banking. Please, let's put our hands together.
The Chairman, Senate Committee on Finance, Senator Musa Sani, the Honorable Minister of Finance, and the Honorable Minister of Economic Planning, the Central Bank Governor, the DGs of Central Bank, and captains of industry that are here. This morning, I'm wearing two caps as the Chairman of the Senate Committee on Capital Market, as well as representing the Chairman Senate Committee on Banking, Senator Tokunbo Abiru, who tried to come, but he couldn't make it for one or two reasons. So whatever I'm going to say now represents his opinion. I'm glad to be honored in this monetary policy forum of the Central Bank of Nigeria. I want to commend the CBN for sustaining this important platform for dialogue and consultation, which reflects a commendable commitment to transparency, policy credibility, and stakeholder engagement. The theme of this year's forum is timely and underscores the shared responsibility required to sustain macroeconomic stability in our country. Nigeria's macroeconomic indications are showing gradual improvement, reflecting the impact of ongoing reforms and policy adjustments. Inflationary pressures are moderating, external reserves have strengthened, exchange rate stability has improved, and the banking sector remains resilient with strong capital and liquidity buffers. The ongoing banking sector recapitalization program is also progressing well, reinforcing confidence in the financial system. And I'm happy to note that about 31 banks are fully recapitalized. However, we must remain cautious in light of global uncertainties, including geopolitical tensions and volatility in the energy market, which continues to pose risk to emerging economies such as Nigeria. In this regard, the Central Bank commitment to a more forward-looking and rule-based monetary policy framework, including the planned transition toward inflation targeting, is a welcome development that can further strengthen policy credibility. However, it is important to emphasize that monetary policy alone cannot achieve macroeconomic stability. Close coordination between monetary and fiscal authorities remain essential to ensure that the gains we are beginning to see are sustained. From the standpoint of the Senate, we remain committed to supporting a strong, stable, and well-regulated financial system, while respecting the operational independence of the central bank. We will continue to provide legislative and oversight support to ensure that our financial system remains resilient, innovative, and aligned with global best practices. As we deliberate at this forum, I encourage continuous collaboration among policymakers, regulators, and stakeholders so that together we can build a more stable, inclusive, and prosperous Nigerian economy. I thank you all for your attention, and I wish us all a productive and successful forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished Senator Isinazo. On behalf of Senator Mikhail Adetokunbo Abiu, distinguished Senator Sani Musa, distinguished Senator Committee of Finance, we wish to deliver a goodwill message to this gathering.
Thank you. I will stand on the existing protocol. It is a privilege to speak at this forum convened by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Nigeria's path to macroeconomic stability rests on the critical pillars of effective synergy between fiscal policy, monetary policy, and the private sector. When this tree moves in alignment, stability follows. And when they diverge, uncertainty prevails. And that brings us to issues of inflation, restricted inflows, and a lot of capital tightening. Today, our task is clear. We must move from policy coordination as an aspiration to policy coordination as a system. Structured, predictable, and credible. Fiscal discipline must reinforce monetary objectives, while monetary policy must create an enabling environment for productive investments. At the same time, the private sector must be fully integrated as a partner in policy design and execution. Sustainable stability will not come from isolated actions, but from coherence, consistency, and confidence. If we get this right, we will not only stabilize inflation and the exchange rates, we will unlock growth, restore investor confidence, and build a more resilient economy for Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished Senator Sani Musa. A recurring theme in all the speakers thus far is synergy. I will quickly be inviting the doyen of Bank MDs, Dr. Alauba, to deliver a short goodwill on that behalf before we come over. Please let's welcome CEO UBA and the doyen of Bank MDs.
Let me stand on existing protocol already established. I would like to say that the banks are fully supporting the good efforts of the Central Bank Governor and the Minister of Finance. I can say that we are the beneficiaries of the turnaround that has been done in the Nigerian economy. We commend very especially the Central Bank Governor for all the policies, the reform that he has undertaken, and the success that we have seen. And we're commending him, not just the banks. I think globally, the world has recognized the Central Bank of Nigeria. So we're not surprised that the Central Bank won the best central bank in the whole world. When I told the governor and sent him a small chat to congratulate him, he said, this is for everybody. And indeed, that's the spirit. We will continue to do our best to work with the governor and ensure that we have stability in the economy. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you very much, Doyen of Bank MDs. And now I would be inviting His Excellency Senator Atiku Bagudu for his goodwill message. Let's give him a resounding round of applause, especially as it is a home forum. Senator Bagudu, please, you're most welcome.
The distinguished senators Osita Ozinaso and distinguished senators Haile Musa, representing the two committees of the National Assembly and indeed the Senate, and our host, the Governor of the Central Bank, my dear friend, Yemi Cardoso, the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Deputy Governors of the Central Bank, Deputy Governor designate my friend Lamido Yuguda, who we started training in CBN on the same day, so just so that the governor will know that this is a double honor. And, the guest speakers, bank MDs, and stakeholders. Let me start once more joining all the others for appreciating the central bank for convening this group, and as well as all the successes that have been recorded. We were there last year when this forum took place, and what has happened, what has been achieved to paraphrase from the last speaker, quoting the governor of the central bank, the effort of all, and certainly underscores that we need to interact more, we need to share ideas more, especially where Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu have challenged us to a $1 trillion economy. And it didn't just happen in a vacuum. The Agenda 2050 that was designed by the totality of society, I think it was chaired by the private sector. On the private sector, Atido Peter side. On the public sector, the co-chair was Zainab Shafin Ahmed. Civil society, the best, everyone gathered. We said by 2050, we want to be an $11 trillion economy with a 33,000 per capita GDP. So when one juxtaposes that with $1 trillion economy by the year 2030, which is coincidental to the second five-year national development, it doesn't sound outlandish. It's just somebody reminding Mr. President in his profound manner, reminding us of what we can be as an economy. And I'm sure gathered here are people who believe something. And the plan period 2021 and 2022-2025, which is the first five-year development plan, presented us with two contrasting scenarios: pre-Big Bang and, of course, post-Big Bang, being May 29th, 2023. We have seen how taking bold, necessary, but sometimes unpleasant choices can lead to the right results. That the gentleman, Alauba, who spoke on the banking sector, spoke, and we have seen results that are the pride of all Nigerians, especially people gathered in this room, to the extent that not only was the central bank rated as the best performing, but the kind of comments we see from rating agencies, from institutions that are hesitant to say what they have been saying, particularly in the chaotic international environment, shows that we have all done well. Mr. President, the governor of the central bank, the coordinating minister of the economy, the private sector. But that we have done well does not mean we cannot do better. And this is central bank's way of acknowledging that and saying, let us interrogate what we can do differently and what we can do. And again, luckily, the stage has been set. The governor, the coordinating minister of the economy, and the governor, for example, have been concerned about that irreducible minimum of commitment to policy, policy over the next couple of years, to the extent that we all convinced Mr. President, and Mr. President attended a meeting of the National Economic Council on October 25th and agree an irreducible number of steps that can ensure the sustenance of the reforms, can ensure that better coordination is taking place between fiscal, monetary, and monetary authorities, and in the definition of fiscal, even the conduct of state and local government in. And I think that is a very historic agreement. There are six of those agreements. I'm sure maybe we'll hear about them more later. It has been a keynote, not being a keynote. But it underscores that because we are a constitutional federalism, the central bank have to also be more flexible in appreciating that. It's very easy to say we are a constitutional federalism, but when one studies Brazil and India very well, even Canada, and I'm glad that Yemi Cardoso person is leading Canada today, so maybe that Makani, so that may make him listen more. I was very happy whenever I saw. So that will happen because we really need, it's a tug of war, but for us to sustain or generate growth in production in a federal setting, we have advantages that we can crowd in together, and while supporting the central bank's position to be less interventionist in development financing, but they must remain active, because if there is one thing that we need to agree with, is how to even use from the budget process to the spending power of the local government and state to support domestic production, given that that will help support monetary policy sustainability, especially when we're looking at downward trend interest rates and more stable exchange rate. And within the 5-year plan and within the number of things that are being done on the fiscal side, I believe we are on our way. For me personally, I'm very, very honored to be part of this team with people who I know very well. I know the governor of the central bank very, very well. And I'm not surprised at the way he's doing what he's doing, and certainly some members of his team, as well as, of course, the coordinating minister of the economy, people who are determined that we must do everything to work together. But again, last but not the least, is to quote from the governor once he said, "Let us not be too hard on ourselves, because we have achieved probably one of the most successful and the most demanding reforms in recent history." Let's recall that there were 3 military takeovers between June 2023 and December 2023. But that did not despair our president in saying we'll do the right thing. So despite the turbulence, despite disaffection with democracy in the sub-region, we did the right thing. We did not quite calculate wisely or fully the consequence of the securitization of the about $30 trillion naira waste and means, except when we started dealing with it, with the challenges on a daily basis. But today we are seeing all those good things that have been said, true and true. But more importantly, an understated success story is that when subnationals are saying truly we have decided to join the federal government because of the benefit of the reforms, I think it's an understated success, which maybe economic historians will have material to interrogate because it will support other reforms that doing the right thing can lead to better cohesion and in a way de-risking the reforms. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Minister of Budget and National Planning is a man of many parts. And no, so please let's give him a more resounding round of applause. He ended it on an intellectual note, a challenge for economic historians, and I saw the DGEP nodding agreement. So don't be surprised if there is some workshop to distill how economic reforms can lead to cohesion, you said. Thank you very much. Certainly a man who should know about synergy. He has been a legislator, a state governor, and now serving in the Federal Executive Council, Senator Atiku Bagudu. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and now for the goodwill message of the gentleman on whose shoulders lie a lot of responsibility. Please welcome, for his goodwill message, Honorable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edu.
Thank you very much, and good morning. While resting on the well-established protocols established by my amiable brother, younger brother, the DG Mohammed Abdullahi, he not only did the MC's job by establishing the protocols, he did his own job by welcoming us. Then he did most other people's job here by his very delighted to have the opportunity of being here to participate in this important monetary policy forum. I think the second of its kind, I believe, and I was there at the first. And thank God, nobody knows the future, so we'll leave it at that. But let me say that right from the start, we all recognize, the world recognize what the governor calls the team at CBN, what they have achieved, what they have had the opportunity to achieve, what His Excellency Mr. President has challenged and empowered them to achieve. And it's commendable. It is being highlighted around the world, and we commend and congratulate CBN as a team, led of course by the government. And thanks for giving us this other opportunity today. It is both timely and it is well judged. And I think the Honorable Minister for Budget and Economic Planning has already started to do what the DG Economic Policy described as one of the main purposes and objectives of this session. And that is to get feedback
clear, coherent, helpful feedback from stakeholders. And that is what will help to put an even finer point on some of the responsibilities that CBN carries on the monetary side. I can give you some other feedback. You see, CBN is in charge of monetary policy, but inflation is a fight that we must all participate in and contribute to. But you know, the number one tool and lever that is available to combat inflation is interest rates. And when you have high interest rates, you have a situation where of course, on the fiscal side, you have a challenge of meeting that higher financing cost. Households have higher financing costs. Businesses have higher financing costs. And so, of course, we're all delighted at the rapid fall, the deceleration, disinflation that occurred between 2024 and 2025. And long may that continue, because what happens then is we can now even predict that interest rate reduction will eventually follow as decided by the authorities. But I think that's important feedback to give here, that that's what's on our minds at the moment. Let me now say that we rightly recognize that macroeconomic stability cannot be delivered by any single institution, as Senator Musa has said, amongst others. It requires policy coherence, institutional discipline, and sustained collaboration across monetary, fiscal, and wider economic authorities. In particular, I would like to acknowledge CBN's continuing efforts to improve foreign exchange market transparency, support Naira stability, and deepen confidence in the policy environment. These efforts, alongside the collaborative work between the fiscal and monetary authorities, are helping to foster, as I said, disinflation, to reduce uncertainty, and reinforce overall macroeconomic stability. And that coordination is essential, and it must remain strong. We must build on it. We must continue it. Let me also commend CBN on advancing the transition from an inflation targeting monetary policy framework. I think this is a significant institutional step, thought leadership, and making the sustainability of what is happening at CBN today, making it more sustainable by institutionalizing it. And a credible inflation targeting framework helps to anchor inflation expectations, strengthens policy predictability, it improves communication with markets and citizens, and enhances the transparency and accountability of monetary policy. And over time, of course, this framework can reduce uncertainty, moderate inflation, and help to do something really important, build a more stable basis for planning, for saving, and for investing, leading to rapid, sustained, and inclusive growth, which is the overall aim of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's what I would call renewed hope agenda and action plan. Let me also reiterate that Nigeria is, as we know, now making the transition from stabilization to growth acceleration. And this in particular requires continued discipline, resolve, and strong coordination across all policy institutions. And so the CBN's emphasis on a broader stakeholder collaboration is timely and essential. You know, the core objective remains job-rich economic transformation anchored on achieving, as we said, in the immediate term, about 7% per annum GDP growth. And why that figure is double the rate of inflation, double the rate of population growth. And therefore, it's high enough for you to imagine it lifting millions of Nigerians out of poverty. You know, the growth inflation dynamic is something that I'm sure is going to be focused on in the technical groups. And essentially, what we are looking for is the fact that inflation, I mean, in technical terms, I'll say it's non-linear, the relationship between growth and inflation, but essentially that there's an inflation level at which you can have economic growth, whereas above that, you are lost totally. So we don't want inflation taking off and accelerating. But then you do want still, despite the fact that you have some level of inflation, you do want the economy growing. That's what America achieved just after COVID, and they were the first to recover. And the emphasis here is that that growth is led by savings, people bringing out savings. And I was just with the SEC earlier today talking about an incentivized mass savings program that people at all levels can key into, because it is through domestic resource mobilization, not borrowing, that we are going to be able to fund the growth at the small, medium enterprises end, as well as at the large scale end. Let me just mention here that because I'm to do Goodwill, not a keynote speech, you know, the economic management team is monitoring the global risks. They are obvious, and I'm sure others will talk about them. Nigeria's Atlantic-facing export position, ongoing reforms provide some cover as a basis for relative resilience compared to other emerging markets. And as the Minister for Budget and Economic Planning quoted the governor, it's actually privately, but now you've quoted him publicly, that so we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves. And we must recognize the resilience of the Nigerian economy at this particular time. You know, you all go up and down from here to Lagos, the bankers and so forth. There are no petrol queues. And we must reflect on how we have arrived at that situation. Let me not say so much more than I wanted to, but let me conclude here by reaffirming the Federal Ministry of Finance's commitment to continue to work closely with the Central Bank of Nigeria and other critical stakeholders to consolidate the reform gains, to sustain, in this case, disinflation, preserve macroeconomic stability, and create the conditions for the all-important investment-led, job-rich growth. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister and the Coordinating Minister, Honorable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, who set out to make a goodwill message that almost became a keynote, and it was reined back in like inflation to remain within the parameters of a goodwill. Please, let's put our hands together one more time. Mr. Governor, when you invite critical stakeholders to a forum like this, and especially after the world has just celebrated your accomplishments, it is natural that everybody has a word to say. But I have extended apologies to a lot of other critical stakeholders who came here prepared to serve a goodwill message. Novi of what? President CIBN, who I'm told is represented by the MD Jaiz Bank, and all the others who had earlier been notified that you will make a goodwill message. Please, on behalf of the organizers, accept my apologies that The coordinating minister of the economy speech suffices, and they have spoken for everybody now. Thank you very much. At this point, we have listened to our invited guests. They have emphasized and reiterated the importance of synergy and collaboration. They've all applauded today's theme, which is strengthening Nigeria's macroeconomic stability through effective monetary policy, the roles of critical stakeholders. It is now time to listen to the man under whose watch the Central Bank of Nigeria was adjudged the best central bank in the world. Now, the commentariats have issued a lot. My all-time favorite is the one which branded it Nigeria's comeback story. The Central Bank of Nigeria's reforms, how Governor Cardoso propelled hopelessness to hope. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for that description. And so may I invite, for the State of the Monetary Policy in Nigeria address, Governor Central Bank of Nigeria, Olayemi Cardoso. Mr. Governor.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, my dear brother, he has given us the first keynote address. So I am delighted that he has kept a little for me to do the second keynote address. The Honorable Minister of Budget and National Planning, and as they say, welcome back home. The chairman of the Senate Committee on Capital Markets, and also the representative of the chair of the Committee of Banking, Insurance, and Other Financial Institutions. Honestly, we love people who come here wearing two caps, so you're welcome. The chairman of the Committee on Finance, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. And honestly, on a serious note,